I've got a hand laminated croissant here that I made for our Lamination 101 class this weekend. And so in this class, we learned how to do this by hand. Here, let's cut it open. There you go. So I'm going to show you how we do this. We're using this New Zealand butter here, and it doesn't come in sheets. So I'm going to pound it between two sill pats here. Pounding it, first of all, makes it a lot more flexible. And then I just get it to the shape that I want. So this allows us to use the butter when it's a lot colder. It gives us more working time. And at this point, I'm just going to make it into a rectangle. So scraping it also helps with the flexibility. Helps me get it even, but the flexibility is key there. So I'm going to go around scraping it, keep making it more square. This butter is straight out of the fridge. This New Zealand butter is very flexible, so I can use it quite cold. Now, I grab my dough, and I need my dough to be the height of my butter and twice the width. I don't concern myself too much with what the actual dimensions are. I just make sure the block and the dough match. That's a little bit too wide, so I'm gonna keep it super square. Turn the butter on. Give it a little pat down so it sticks to the dough, comes off the sill pat. Peel it off. And then again, I'm gonna scrape this side. First of all, making sure it's even, and second of all, making sure I don't have any cracks or anything in the butter. Making sure it's nice and flexible. So I can bend it and it's not gonna crack. So that's key. If it cracks when you bend it, depends on your butter. You might need to let it be a little bit warmer, or you might need to scrape it a little bit more to get it flexible. And then at this point, I put the sides over top, get them to meet in the middle. Now for when I'm doing this on the sheeter, I'm not going to do this, but for hand rolling, I'm just going to seal this over the top to keep squeeze out from happening. And this is going to get trimmed anyways, so get that sealed up. And I'm going to work it a little bit with the rolling pin. Again, make sure it's nice and square. Make sure there's no air bubbles in there. Now I'm going to, I don't want it sticking to the counter, so I'm going to rub a bit of flour on there, both sides. And then I'm going to begin rolling it out, but fairly gently at the beginning. Otherwise, when the butter block is so thick, it's easy to get it all squeezing out, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to begin quite gently. Making sure it's really even. Don't push extra hard on one spot, or you'll crack through the butter. Keep it squared up. Okay, now that it's a little bit thinner, I'm going to add more pressure. And I'm only going to be rolling towards me. So I'm going to start in the middle, and it's my body weight here that's going to roll it. I'm going to lean onto it with an even pressure and roll it towards me like this. Then I'm going to turn it around, do the same thing. You want it to be really even. So I'm starting in the middle here and rolling it towards me. Now, again, I'm not particularly worried about the exact dimensions here. Depends on your table as to how far you're able to actually roll this out comfortably. But if you can roll it out a little farther, that's better. I'm going to turn around one more time. And then I am going to trim it. And the goal here is to get a solid line of butter all the way through. So you can see here, there's a nice line of butter. I've got a little bit of these corners here that are not solid. So I'm going to just see how far back I have to go, a little bit farther. And now my butter line goes all the way through. Okay. And I'm going to trim the other side. I'm going to go a little farther back here. And we use these trimmings to either turn into a brioche or turn into a different pastry. So I'm not too concerned about a little extra trimming. I want the layers to be perfect. Okay, so now I've got these trimmed, and I'm going to meet these in the middle for a double fold or a book fold. Usually people are offsetting these like this and then folding it. But I find if I put them in the middle, like this, right in the middle, make sure they're lined up just right, and I leave a little space here, smush that middle, then when I'm going to fold the book over, the ends will line up perfectly for the layers. So if you look in here, now I've got those in right up to the edge there. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to continue, and I do these folds back to back. You have to have a good recipe that's nice and extensible. And again, I'm going to start slowly. And what you'll notice is when you roll on the top, you're going to have to flip it over, and the top has expanded more than the bottom. So you got to do this a few times till they're going to stay even so that you don't have to trim too much. So I'm going to roll this right to the edge. I'm going to flip it over again. And here you can see, again, the bottom has gone out farther. The more these don't line up, the more you're going to have to trim off. I'm thinning this part out because it's a little bit longer, and then the wide part will come longer there. See, now it's even on this side. Okay, now that I've got it pretty much lined up top and bottom, I'm going to start applying more pressure. So again, I'm going to put it here, start in the middle, squeeze real hard towards me. I can sense that it's sticking to the table a little bit. A little more flour, it doesn't matter. We can brush this off later. Again, start in the middle, come towards me. You want to go real hard here because the less rolling you do, the less you're going to work the butter into the dough. So I'm really leaning my body into it. Okay, I've got a decent length here now. Just going to try to square this up as much as possible so I can minimize my trims. Make sure these are even. So now that I'm trimming this part, I'm going to look for 4 layers of butter. And that's what you got there, 4 layers. So then you can see you've done your folds properly. This one's going to be a little off on that corner. That's actually pretty good. So there's my 4 there. And I'm going to repeat that fold. I just got to get a brush. You want to get the flour off of here so that the layers will adhere to each other. And again, I'm going to meet these in the middle. This time for the second fold, I'm going to meet them a little closer because it's just works a little better that way. I don't leave as big of a gap here. Make sure they're squared right up and perfectly centered. And again, I'm going to push right down here and flatten this out real flat. And then I'm going to fold it in half. And when you're done, you'll see you've got 4 on this side and 8 on that side. And this is my book here. So I've done for croissant, I like to do 2 double folds or book folds or 4 folds. I prefer to call them 4 folds because you're folding it into 4, and that makes more sense than a book or a double. So there you go. That's how you laminate it.